Good night and welcome to Mindful Live 367. I am your co-host Nathan Springer and this is the host, Leora Lewis Springer. Say hi. Tell the people hi. Good night. What's up, people? It is presently the 4th of March. Third month in the year already. 4th of March, and we're moving well along. Welcome. Once you're inside of this, we're streaming live on Instagram, on TikTok, and on YouTube. So make sure you hit that like button, double tap the screen over there on TikTok. That's how you hit the like button over there. Looking at this on repeat on YouTube, yeah, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel, Nathan Springer, over there on YouTube. Make sure you're subscribed so you won't miss any of these lives when we start late, as we do sometimes. And when you may not know, you may not catch all the notifications. And that's why you hit the like button. Bit me. That's why you hit the like button. That like button is to notify, get those notifications out there flying. Allow the algorithm to know, hey, this is some good stuff. Notify the people. All right, well, this evening we're starting, unfortunately, as it seems like it's regularly the case when you pay attention to news in Trinidad and Tobago. This evening we're starting with crime. This evening we're starting with crime. Let's jump in over there to that article one time. 7 killed over bloody weekend. 7 killed over bloody weekend. Yikes. Kizzy David, the mother of slain 96.7 Mike Man Elijah Babs, is asking what was the reason for his death after he was fatally shot at Eastern Quarry Lavantil. Bob was one of 6 people killed in Trinidad and Tobago over the weekend, and I suppose that's updated because it was actually 7 in the long run. The bloodletting started on Friday night with Dwayne Pay, when Dwayne Pay had to use his body to shield his infant daughter. That's in Penal. Pay of Penal was shot by gunmen in his home on Saturday about 9:50. Port of Spain police responded to gunshots being heard on Charlotte Street, when they got to the scene, they found Mosai Ross of Duncan Street dead near Eastside Plaza. Further inquiries revealed that a TT defense officer also was shot from First Street, Beetham Gardens. He was also shot in his leg. Many people caught up in that violence over the weekend. And, you know, it keeps reminding me of something I regularly mention in the live here. Where, you know, when we talk about violence, when people talk about violence and communities that have been overrun by violence, they talk about, you know, the poverty is what brings this crime. What is needed is jobs, and if you get some jobs and some money inside of these communities, these things all go away. But you look at the crime situation, you look at these crimes as they go down, and you recognize that doesn't really seem to be it. Like in Lavantil apparently had some kind of fete. A DJ from Red 96.7 was there playing for their fete. Allegedly, some disagreement happened. The man was murdered, reportedly, over that. Now, you tell me, how encouraged or enthusiastic would any DJ be to go play, speak, mic man, anything for another event in Lavantil? You just further stained your community. Your community is already carrying around a horrible name. Your community is already carrying around a horrible name. And you just further cemented it. Some people may have said previously, because the young man, the report was he has played parties before in Lavantil. It's not a strange thing. Some people may have been of the views, well, you know, once you're a music man, once you're a mic man, once you're a DJ, you're safe. DJ is safe on the inside there. They don't kill a DJ, you know, you go on to play the music. Well, now that's not the case. And what does that do for the furtherance of that community? That's just going to embed more poverty and a lack of opportunities in the community. And people would ask, but what wrong with Laventille? Why Laventille can't get this? Why Laventille can't get that? That's why Laventille cannot get it. That's why. I'm not saying it's a good thing or it's good for the innocent people inside of the region, but that is the reason why. That is the reason why. And that is what reinforces poverty in those communities. It's not that crime follows poverty, but poverty follows crime. These men out here trying to make a quick dollar are reinforcing poverty into their communities. They are ensuring that themselves, their children, and their children will remain the dregs of society, poor and begging all of their days. That's what crime and making your community into a crime hotspot does. That's what you do. You cement your position at the bottom. In Tunapuna, gang violence, extortion cripples business in Tunapuna. The escalating gun violence in Tunapuna is causing residents to live in fear, restricting their movements and negatively affecting their livelihood. This is an article from a week ago. And what would you know? And what would you know, just over the weekend, another murder in Tunapuna. Another murder in Tunapuna. PNM Councillor for Ozenville, Tunapuna, John Boyd Briggs, said at the moment his district was probably one of the hottest areas in the country, with 7 or 8 different criminal gangs. He said because of the crime situation, Tunapuna saw a decline in visitors for Carnival compared to previous years, and residents are living in fear. He said Tunapuna had a vibrant business sector and no business person had reached out to him about extortion, so he could not speak to rumors of gangs harassing businesses for money. However, he was aware people were afraid to go to the Tunapuna market. Since the shooting in January, the men were killed near the market at night when a car drove up. Briggs said the corporation and the market committee were putting measures in place to address the situation, including adding more police patrols. This is what happens. Crime and criminality makes your community inaccessible to others. Desmond King says, Nathan, why are we playing a police service and there's so much crime everywhere? I presume you mean paying. Why are we paying a police service and there's so much crime? Well, I guess we don't have much choice in the matter. For one, it's not like we could decide not to pay them tomorrow. That's not really a choice we have in the matter. It is what it is. I wonder if that I have that article up. Police find, as you're talking about police and this crime situation, police find almost 200 million in ganja, cocaine in Cedrus Forest. Police discovered more than 1.5 tons of marijuana, estimated to be worth more than $165.3 million, and 13.8 kilos of cocaine, estimated at $19.2 million, in a multi-agency exercise done in Cedrus on March 3rd. Yeah, lots of the herb gone, apparently. Hear this story though. Hundreds of millions in drugs, eh? But hear this. Police said, listen to the police version of how this happened. Police said they conducted surveillance of Austin Trace, Permandal Village, Cedrus, for 4 days. And based on intelligence gathered, they ventured 2 miles into a forested area off the street. All right, they say they surveilled the area for 3 days. And then they ventured into the forest to find this. That's how they found it. They surveilled the area 3 days. Now, sorry, my bad, 4 days. Now, what is the understanding you all have of the meaning of surveillance? My understanding for the meaning of surveillance is to closely observe. You know, you're watching something very carefully, trying to make sure that you don't miss any of the happenings, any of the goings on that are going on there. That's the aim of surveillance. I have to watch it very carefully. Okay. So they were watching this village very closely for 4 days. So closely that they were able to venture, how far? 2 miles. Wait, Scorpion King! Wait, Scorpion King! Let we don't rush. Let we don't rush to the ending there. We building to that point. They were closely observing this region for 4 days. So closely and carefully. They observed everything happening there. They knew exactly where, inside of a densely forested area, 2 miles inside of the forest, exactly where to find the drugs. So closely they surveilled it. During the search, police found 60 bales, each containing 50 blocks of what was described by police as high-grade Colombian creepy marijuana. Police carried the drugs out of the forest and took it to the Marbella police station, where it was weighed at an estimated 1,507 grams. Police checked further and found 12 packets of cocaine weighing at 13.8 kilograms. During the search, police said they heard people speaking Spanish in the forest. They gave chase, but were unable to catch the suspects because of the terrain. Investigations are ongoing. This is what bothers me. The drug itself isn't the issue, you know. Because whoever was going to be the marijuana smoker is going to get their weed some other way. Whoever was going to burn the coke is going to get their coke some other way. The drugs will pass somehow. The main point of this exercise usually is to get the guilty person involved, because this person is key to what is happening here. We don't want these activities going on in our country, and this person keeps engaging in these activities. So it's not to stop the activity, it's to stop the person, because stopping one activity does nothing in the grand scheme. All that might do is send up the price of the drugs for a momentary time, which doesn't help anyone. So if you want to make serious change and have a serious effect, the most important part of all of this is to catch the people involved. If you're surveilling for 4 days, you're telling me after those 4 days, when you know exactly where inside this 2 miles inside this densely populated forest this cache of drugs are, you're telling me you can't call in the helicopter, call in Coast Guard, a couple regiment battalions or something, make a dragnet, surround the region, and close in. Let me not even study to pose with the drugs. Let's look for the people. All those Spanish-speaking voices we're hearing in the forest, let's see if we could catch all of them. You're telling me nobody in our police service considered maybe that might have been a more important role? They surveilled for 4 days to go and find some grass and dust. I wonder how much money in police manpower hours were spent to find grass and dust. I'm sorry. I saw the commissioner of police were lauding them for this, but I'm sorry. I don't rate it very highly. Police taking serious money to find grass and dust. I don't see it as being a big useful thing. Grass and dust that's replaced every day. You cannot find grass and dust enough in the country so that all the users of grass and dust no longer use it. There is no country in the world where they are that good at finding grass and dust that none of the users could find it to use it anymore. No country has been able to do that. Generally, if you want to stop that business, you have to stop the people involved. But no, here in Trinidad, we're special. All we look for is the grass and dust. And that's enough for the police to take their pictures and get commendations for the grass and dust. Like, you know, that's so useful. So useful. And a bit that I found interesting, even in the series of murders that we heard about, the 7 murders over the weekend there. The murder that happened in Port of Spain, somewhere around Charlotte and Duncan Street there. One guy was murdered. I believe he had one of those outrageous videos out where, you know, he couldn't wait to ward the police. Well, I mean, war came at your doorsteps. But while he was shot, someone was shot alongside him. A soldier was shot in his foot. I don't know what the soldier was doing there. I don't know if he was just an innocent passerby. But you could wonder, what is a soldier doing around what seems to be gangland gunplay? And an article may shed some light on what sometimes happens with regiment officers in this light. Slain soldier was hitman for hire, say investigators. Targeted for role in highway killings. The soldier who was shot and killed in La Puerta de Gomartin last month was a hitman for hire in the criminal underworld and had been involved in the murders of several people in the past. Senior investigators say the 27-year-old had been involved in nefarious activities, including murder, based on information and intelligence they had obtained. He was shot dead on the night of February 18th near his home while liming with a group of men at La Puerta Avenue. And I remember after that shooting, his family was saying, you know, he was a good guy just there taking care of his children and that's all he's out there to do. And that tells you a problematic part of our society. How many times people who are known to be pests, I'm not saying this guy was that person. This is what the newspaper is saying. I don't know this to be a fact. This is what the newspaper is saying they heard from the police. But how many other times, not this time, how many other times have you heard known people who have been distressing areas came into an unfortunate end, and you hear their family speaking about them in glowing remarks, you know, like they were angels on earth. And then you understand some of the problems we have in our society, where many people aren't just criminals all on their own. They are criminals supported by a network of criminals supporting family and friends and community. That's the main problem many times. But investigators said that on that Sunday around 9:45 p.m., a silver-colored vehicle approached the gathering and 2 gunmen got out and started shooting at the group. Green was shot multiple times and died on the scene. 3 other men were also shot several times and were later taken to hospital where they were treated and released. Investigators say his death was connected to his involvement in the murders that happened in late December on the Churchill-Roosevelt Highway. In that incident, the intended target came and 6 and another man escaped unhurt. Hey, Mr. Ramishan. Glad seeing you here. There's some news coming out from Guyana that you might be interested in. With that oil spill, names are calling from high up in Guyanese society. I don't know how much of that you're following. So Interesting. The Sunday Express was informed by sources that the man was part of the team who carried out the highway killings. He was in the white Hyundai Elantra motor car, part of a convoy that led the attack on the men who had left Piarco International Airport just minutes before. The killing of the man was definitely in retaliation for those 6 gang members, a police investigator told the Sunday Express. So, according to a police investigator, one of the most bold, brazen crimes in Trinidad recent history was perpetrated by, at least partly perpetrated by a man who is being paid by our taxpayers as part of our protective forces. And you know, something I regularly talk about. I regularly say this, like, I wonder when I see things like that, I wonder how many of those men are even still alive. Like, those men who went out on that job to do that shooting back whenever that was. Good night, Krimak. This might be stuff you might be aware of. I wonder how many of those shooters are still alive. Because reading comments and hearing allegations, I'm not involved to know any kind of deep dark realities going on inside there. But when you hear about the amount of shootings going on and men who are connected here and connected there, I wonder, okay, y'all went and distressed someone and put on one of the dreadest hits in gang history. Y'all are gang legends out there. Spark them up on the highway, jump out on the highway, drill down the team, ting. I am sure that story was told over and over and over in the gang parties, in the little trap house lime where they're liming and burning something. They talk about that over and over. And you are a hero to the gang. All right, great. I wonder how many of that heroic murderous team are even still alive. All right, you put down this job last month. Do you live a year from that? Because, at least according to this was part of the team. And he dead. Like, what's the value of it? What's in it? But he's dead as a member of our regiment while being accused of being a hitman. I'm looking for that SSA article. And as we're looking at regiment officers reportedly being hitmen out here, we see something strange going on inside of our security agency. Security shakeup. Cabinet sends SSA head on administrative leave. Envoy recalled from Washington to act in position. The office of the Prime Minister last night announced the sudden replacement of the head of the Strategic Services Agency, Major Roger Best, with Ambassador Brigadier General Anthony Philip Spencer having been appointed to act in the role last Saturday. Now, they said this is I don't think lifespan is a subject of concern due to the early exposure to hardship and crime. Good point. Now, the Prime Minister said that this was done on information they received from the police. That's where he left it at. Information they received from the police. Now, I am curious here. Is this information that the head of our Strategic Services Agency was involved in some kind of malfeasance? Is this the information that we are presented? So is it that we have regiment officers as hitmen the head of the strategic services agency in Trinidad and Tobago is like our, you could consider it as our proxy for the CIA or NSA or something like that. It's our secret intelligence gathering service. So you're telling me our secret service, our CIA, is compromised at the top while our regiment is fielding hitmen? And then we are to be surprised that Trinidad and Tobago seems to be the criminal paradise that it is. How intelligent can the police be if the head of our intelligence services may be compromised? Well, no wonder after they surveil an area for 4 days, all they could find is grass and dust and not a person. A remote village down in Cedros, and you're telling me you can't find one person. Okay, well, I understand why. Because our security, because our strategic services agency, our information gathering apparatus might be compromised. So it's understandable then. Swift hands. These kind of things are things that, you know, make your blood run cold when you think about the safety of this country. I saw an article, I just browsed past the article, an allegation of a body dumping site found in Sealots. A graveyard found in Sealots, like multiple bodies. Who forgot Dana? I didn't. If you're a regular in a view of my life, I regularly mention Dana. Dana's story is one of those stories that helps to ground you in what you say in Trinidad and Tobago. Bear in mind, keep in mind that this country is legitimately dangerous. Keep careful whose toes you mash. The country is legit dangerous. It's not just kicks level. It's not just ground level. That kind of assassination is assassinations you hear from the depths of cartel land. And when you hear that kind of assassination happens in Trinidad and Tobago, and you see that the attempts are not made on other people, it makes me wonder if those other high-profile people are making sure to keep themselves clear of harassing anyone in that criminal lane. Because why was she the only one targeted? Was it that she was the only one looking to dig up dirt on who she was digging up dirt on? We have a history of high-profile hits. Yes, we do. It seems like if they do want to get to you and you are disturbing them, getting to you is not out of the realm of possibility. It's just a matter of if they want to enough. And that's a scary feeling in the country, isn't it? Who was assassinated when? Dana Sitahal. Is who I was speaking about initially. And a lot of the times when I look at these things, I wonder how purposeful a lot of this is. Are people out there purposefully incapacitating our security services, making sure that they are unable to do what they are supposed to do? Listra says, no witness protection, no protection. All our protective services have corrupt in the mix. Yeah, remember, we had a police officer who was the main witness against her fellow police officers. And then she was too scared to continue testifying. a police officer. She was afraid of witness protection. Trinidad and Tobago. Our systems. Judge, hire more lawyers. Hire more state lawyers. This is something I've been saying forever. I always wonder about this. A High Court judge has again advised the department, which handles civil litigation for the state, to reinvent its processes to ensure efficiency. Justice Frank Sipasad admitted he was perturbed after he had to adjourn a trial of a malicious prosecution claim brought by Princess Town businesswoman who was arrested and charged with human trafficking in 2014. The trial has now been set for May 13th and 14th. So they keep having to adjourn trial. Okay, we can't do it today. Today we have to do it another day and another day and another day and another day and keep putting it further and further off. In August 2022, the judge had to advocate for changes to the understaffed state law departments when the state missed the deadline for the filing of its defense. The state is missing deadlines. Alana Lagan had applied for default judgment, but the court was told some internal administrative imbroglio caused by inconsistent record keeping led to a miscalculation of the date of the date the defense was due. Gotcha. What is causing the corruption of our people at every level and institution? How do we fix it? Well, I have a theory in terms of some things I've read before. Like I read someone describing this about Africa, and I've said this before. And they were basically saying they don't believe that some people are intrinsically more corrupt than others. And I don't believe that either. I don't think that Trinis are born with a more corrupt gene necessarily. I don't think so. I think the corruption is a incentive structure built into our system. When you have money flowing and bureaucracy holding it back, corruption seeps in to attempt to get it to flow better. And we have those two, we have that combination pretty well. Lots of money flowing and lots of bureaucracy, lots of red tape. Moving further, we moved further, the Caribbean and Africa, lots of the world that was given their independence from European colonial powers, when they got that independence, a lot of them, and understandably so to some extent, moved in the opposite direction. They saw lots of the Europeans were on this more capitalist free market system, so they went to the left-wing side of things to a large degree. Lots of government control, lots of state control. And when you have that level of state and government control, in order to get things done, you have to get a pass from here, a signature from there, a stamp from this, a thing from that, and a that from that, and a that from that. And in order to do it, well, I'm not actually going to spend 5 years to get my business done. I rather spend $50,000. And just like that, we encourage corruption. Difficulty in getting something done, grease the wheel, and you're good to go. Yeah, it's a combination of both. It's a combination of the bureaucracy, the bureaucratic systems that we created, that with the large amount of natural resources we had access to. Those two, I think, that's my opinion on why our corruption level is the way it is. So, like for example, over in Guyana now, where they are getting that increase in resources running through their country, if they move in the direction of lots of protectionism from the state puts in lots of measures to try and make sure that everyone gets a fair chance. You know, the state is helping lots of people. What is actually going to happen is you're going to need the state say so, the government say so. Someone in the government is going to have to sign off on everything, increasing the bureaucracy, increasing the avenues for corruption. They are at the, to me, they are at the junction here where they could select how they want to structure their country in the coming decade. Do you want that bureaucratic system where bureaucracy does not decrease corruption, making sure that there are infinite checks and balances doesn't make sure there are infinite there's infinite honesty? No. What you do is you make people decide that they'll find a way around it. if you make it illegal for people to do regular activities that people regularly do, you are not just going to change everyone's human behavior. If you change regular human behaviors to a crime, you are not going to forcefully change all of that regular human behavior. All you are going to do is make criminals of regular humans. And how many Trinidadians are soft criminals? How many Trinidadians pay a bribe here, a bribe there? They pay something to get this to run smoothly. They pay something to get that to run smoothly all the time. The checks and balances we have now are not being enforced, so we are going nowhere, Listra says. You see, but the thing is, to some extent, some checks and balances don't even make sense. And having them there in the first place creates the avenue for problems. Sipasad went on though, speaking of, so then there's a country problem, then I agree. Speaking of the understaffing of the state lawyers, I am perturbed by what I see unfolding in the Solicitor General and Chief State Solicitor departments. It appears that these departments are acutely understaffed. He said it was unfathomable that hundreds of millions of dollars was spent to retain private attorneys to represent the state, but the same resources were not being deployed internally to relieve the burden of the overworked lawyers in the state departments. I have been saying this ad nauseum. It seems so strange to me that every year there's a bacchanal over state briefs where they unfold and reveal how much money the government spent on outside counsel, how many lawyers became millionaires just off of government work. And that's why I regularly say a lot of government just seems like URP for lawyers to me. URP for lawyers. And the judge is saying the same thing. So apparently it's not only simple old me reading the news and talking and ranting, talking online that notices something is weird about this. How is it that we could hire outside counsel all year round, but we just can't permanently give some people a little work? Every year, 1,000-something people, children running to go and do law. We always have lawyers. You'd enjoy that one, Ramishan. We always have new lawyers being made. Like, I mean, I don't know the quality of all of these lawyers, but they're graduating every year. There's a whole slew of pictures rushing through a timeline, standing up on the stairs of the Hall of Justice, being called to the bar, and great for you all. But give the young lawyers a little state work now. Where all of these young lawyers supposed to work? Give them a little state job. You're trying to tell me the president husband supposed to get all of these state contracts? All? A state law, we can't hire a few state lawyers? So strange to me. So strange to me. Like, imagine... I guess we do see some of that in the healthcare sector, but they would have crucified the doctors long before. Imagine if in the hospital, and we know some of this exists, but imagine if in the hospital, every time you go, they tell you, well, we don't have the staff to do this, so we'll send you over to the private hospital, but don't worry, we will pay your fees. So instead of doing the work at the public hospital, they send you to the private hospital and the government keeps paying all of your fees. Wouldn't people get suspicious after a while? Like, okay, why have the public hospital at all? It just seems befuddling to me. And when you see things like this, and I don't believe for a second that the people in charge of these agencies are idiots. I am not so arrogant to believe that somehow I am so much smarter than all of these people. I figure these things out. I look and I find something straight, and these people have no idea. But no. I don't buy that at all. And that's why when I see things like the checks and balances, people say the checks and balances aren't being enforced. Well, that's not a checks and balances issue. That's an enforcement issue. That's a choice issue. They don't want to. There's no new check and balance you can put in the law books that is going to make them want to enforce the checks and balances. If guns and drugs are coming into the country, I don't think that there's some new special agency they could create to avoid that. And they're trying to. Monilal rubbishes JSC's Border Security Agency proposal. Opposition MP for Arapuchi's Dr. Rudal Munilal has slammed the proposal for a Border Protection and Security Agency BPSA recommended by a report from the Joint Select Committee on National Security. Speaking at a UNC media conference at the party's headquarters, Munilal, a member of the committee, described the proposal as an act of hypocrisy in the 11th hour before a general election. The report also said a severe staff shortage. The JSC's report, on illegal firearms and gun violence laid in Parliament on March 1st said the proposed BPSA would take over the border protection and security functions of the existing Customs and Excise Division that would then be left to focus on taxation/revenue collection. The report also said a severe staff shortage at the Customs and Excise Division challenged its ability to effectively carry out its current mandate. The committee said the BPSA, once formed, should then appropriately fall within the purview of the Ministry of National Security. The Ministry of Finance is the CD's current line ministry. On Sunday, Munilal said a BPSA had already been proposed in 2015 by former National Security Minister Edmund Dillon and had not yet been implemented 9 years later. Rooney says hi. From where, Trini Hotep? Is she next to you? Don't answer that, eh? Listra says exactly so. If you are not performing the job you are hired to do, stay employed. Sweet TNT. Yes. Waited for years for the THA audit. Have any been submitted? I think we're still waiting for all the details of that THA audit to come out. I see the eyes, Nisi. I see the eyes. And on Thursday, I would like to hear your full thoughts on Trinidad and Tobago Final Court of Appeal being the Privy Council. I want to know how it started and why haven't we left? Well, how it started isn't a difficult thing to understand. The Privy Council is the highest court in Britain, and we were once a colony of the United Kingdom, the British. So, easy to understand how it started. Now, I could talk about this now because I've spoken about it before, and it kind of leans into some of this too. The idea of the judicial system, of the court, of the law. The idea of the law. It works on trust. The law works because the society, by and large, believes that when the court gives down a ruling, it's a just ruling and it would have effect on the society. So, to a sensible extent, prestige and standing and reputation has a lot to do with how effective a court is. The Privy Council, being as prestigious and reputable as it is, provides a very solid base upon which our entire legal system could buttress itself. We could stand assured that regardless of whatever hiccups could happen within our judicial system, we could go to the Privy Council and they will sort it out according to the law of the land. Here's an issue where, and I spoke about this previously when I spoke about El Salvador, where you could see the benefit and disadvantage of the highest court of the land being internal. In El Salvador, their Supreme Court, their highest court, is internal. So when their president decided that he wanted to get rid of the gangs were overdoing it, he's going to lock them up, build a massive 40,000 person prison and throw them all in it. He knew that very likely they were going to get their lawyers and send their way right up to the top of the court system. He took basically control of the Supreme Court, and that went in his direction. In Trinidad and Tobago, if a prime minister jumps in and decides that they're going to throw a state of emergency and lock up everybody who decides to call themselves a gangster, they are going to hire Mr. Ram Logan, a couple other senior counsels, and take that matter straight to the Privy Council. The Privy Council being exterior to Trinidad and our internal troubles is going to rule on that as a neutral arbiter just looking at the letter of the law. Very likely that's not going to go in our direction. And it's as simple as that. But here's the thing, in a country like Trinidad and Tobago, where we have the political divisions that we do have, and the political divisions, if we are being honest, are based around, at least they are promoted around ethnic and racial lines. If we remove our senior court, or most senior court, from being the Privy Council and we put it into the Caribbean, there's already a perception, and let's not dilly-dally and pussyfoot around the realities here. There's already a perception that by and large the wider island Caribbean side, being more Afro-Caribbean based, may lean more to the PNM side of things. There is that perception. And if there's a Caribbean Court of Justice that may be manned by 5, how much ever, African Negro of African descent law lords, would that possibly create conflict in Trinidad and Tobago when attempts are being made to get final ruling on something and accusations of interference and bias are put forward? And okay, according to what side you may or may not be on, you might find, well, those accusations don't make sense. Those accusations don't have merit. We are Caribbean people together. All are we is one family in the Caribbean. You could say that. But bear in mind what I started talking about. The judicial system, the courts, they work on trust. If a large contingent of people in Trinidad and Tobago no longer trust that they could get justice through the legal system, they would have to look for alternative methods to get what they think is justice. The same argument could be made for the American Supreme Court. The same argument is made about the American Supreme Court, and that's why after Donald Trump tilted the balance of the court into a more conservative direction and the Democrats came into power, there was constant talk about packing their court. In other words, increasing the number of judges on the court to make sure that they get a benefit, they get more people on their side inside of the court. And that's because their court is internal. So there's always going to be that internal conflict. If your court is internal, the politics basically of every judge would be known. Everybody knows this judge is a conservative judge, this judge is a liberal judge. And the rulings then are looked at just in the line of politics. It is removed from the light of justice. And you don't want that. You already have a political branch to exercise for the polity to exercise their decision making. You do not want the political branch to look like now they extend over to the judicial branch. And many countries do function like that. But does the Privy Council convict or bring new charges in a case when brought to them? No, that's not how appeal works. If they do find issues in said case brought to them, no, that's not how appeal works. They uphold the appeal or they throw out the appeal, basically. That's what they do. There's already a bias in our system, for example, custody matters when there's a divorce and fathers. Yes, fact. The family courts are biased against men. Widely known fact, yes. And that's why many men don't trust the system. That's why many men are willing to do things and attempt to do things outside of the system. Politics kind of get in there regardless. Yes, it's the nature of politics, you know. Politics is a kind of poisonous substance like that. Politics gets everywhere with its greedy, grubby, greasy hands. Everywhere it goes. How many countries still use the Privy Council as their final court of appeal? I don't know that offhand. A couple. And to me, the reality of the problems that can be created are too stark, and because of that, I think as it stands, for a country like Trinidad and Tobago, it makes sense to remain under the Privy Council, my opinion. Because the alternative is the Caribbean Court of Justice, and I am not sure how well that would work for the stability and long-lasting peace of Trinidad and Tobago. Politics is a social thing, bro, so it is going to be in just about everything regardless. Yeah, well, politics refers to the affairs of the polity, yeah? The affairs of the people. Politics refers to the affairs of the people. The affairs of the people really is everything. But generally, it gets into more specifically the cut and thrust and power moves within those affairs of the people. Hey, let me jump into this oil story just before we dive out, eh? Taking this oil business. Oil spill secrets. Panamanian firm at center of Tobago oil spill. Cargo valued at US $2 million. Political decisions affect the quality of almost every aspect of our lives, true. We should the CCJ a chance before we condemn it. They've made sensible decisions in the past. Well, you see, that's just the thing. There's no chance in this, I think. I don't think that you give the CCJ a chance and if all hell breaks loose, you return to the Privy Council. It's something that's just kind of a decision you have to go with. So, what would be the benefit we see in this CCJ move compared to the Privy Council? But I think we should have our own Supreme Court as a sovereign nation, in my opinion. That, to me, might make more sense than a CCJ. That, to me, makes more sense than a CCJ. Now, I understand why some people might find it impractical, us being such a small country, but to me, it makes more sense. We make our own final court of appeal, internal to Trinidad and Tobago, and use that instead of the Privy Council. At least that way we know it's our Trinidad and Tobago judges that reach the top, and you could find them biased, but it's all internal here. I just don't feel like allowing the wider Caribbean to have decision making in this is going to work well for Trinidad and Tobago. What you think of a president with lesser power than a PM? Well, that's the nature of our system. I mean, we could change the name of the prime minister to president if we wanted. But one would argue that we are a republic, so isn't it that we half-stepping? But a republic could make that decision. I don't think that is necessarily half stepping, because as I said, to me the best option is to create your own. But you can look at it and decide that, all right, in a country like ours, creating our own might be difficult. In a country like ours, creating your own could create difficulties. So, all right, I was speaking there's the political separation and differences in Trinidad and Tobago. It's highlighted along racial lines. In Trinidad and Tobago, certain careers have certain racial groups more than the other. When you have everything internally, you could have some of those difficulties. Especially with a small country, those difficulties could be accentuated. I could understand why, looking at some of the realities we face, you could say it would make more sense to use an exterior, prestigious, reputable court to have our final appeals at. I understand the reasoning there. Nathan, could we have a Caribbean Supreme Court? Well, that's kind of what the Caribbean Court of Justice is. It is kind of a Caribbean Supreme Court. A regional Supreme Court is more beneficial to CARICOM ideology. To be honest, I am not even 100% sure where the CARICOM ideology lands, you know. CARICOM has been teeter-tottering, titivaying on the edge of what they're supposed to do for a very long time. Because the stronger people in CARICOM are always worried that the poorer people are going to overwhelm them. So, you know, they're always kind of hedging and protecting a little bit. And CARICOM doesn't freely trade as they always do. There are always little hiccups here and there. It's expensive, very expensive to travel in between CARICOM countries because of taxes we charge each other. So I don't even know what this CARICOM ideology is. The CCJ only makes sense if the Caribbean is a federation. But you know, exactly. If we are all... And listen, I may have been okay with a federated Caribbean idea, where we function as a federal entity. Each individual state has its self-governing ability to a large extent, but we work together as a massive body. That could have made sense in the Caribbean, possibly, but that is not the reality we exist in. It is not the reality we exist in, unfortunately. You've just described growing pains within CARICOM. I don't know if those are growing pains. They might be shrinking pains. Hi, Anicia. As a federal, would we have one currency? I guess that would be decided. I don't think those are growing pains. Those are shrinking pains. They are pains that have gone because we shrunk and we decided against it. I don't think many of the CARICOM territories want that. Most of the territories already have enough self-identity, I think, where they seek their self-interest preeminently. Hey, what's up? They seek their self-interest so preeminently that they don't have much interest in compromise for the greater good of everyone. Like, Tobago wants to separate from Trinidad to get better results. You think you could convince some other Caribbean country to join with the entire Caribbean? Tobago hardly wants to stay with Trinidad. I think that's going to be a difficult ask for the Caribbean if you're looking for a federated Caribbean. My thing is, a lot of other countries that was under British got emancipated and grew their own. Grew their own what? Other countries like what? Not wrong statement, positive radiation, because you aren't necessarily speaking for all Tobagonians. There are many Tobagonians that do not want to remain with Trinidad. That's a fact. Wasn't the US once under the British? Yes. But I wouldn't say that the US got emancipated. They fought for their independence. That's a whole different kind of ball game. I mean, if we fought the British, if there was a war, I doubt we would have still been going to the Privy Council. But The US fought, separated, and they crafted an entirely different system. Now, I kind of like that. I like the idea of how the US did their system to that extent. To that extent where they looked like they examined their country, examined their culture, looked at literature, looked at history, and attempted to craft a governance system that would work ideally for their unique reality. Makes sense. Lando says the US is still under Britain. I don't know where you got that, sir. Yeah, you'll need to explain that one, Trini Hotep. Where's the data to support your statement? You want me to go back and find the articles with the Tobagonians being quoted as saying they would like to leave? You want me to find the quotes from one Mr. Watson Duke? Come on, man. Don't gaslight us. The majority of Tobagonians are opposed to the idea of secession. Maybe, but there are some who are not. And many of the vocal Tobagonians in politics flirt with the idea openly. So let's not gaslight each other and pretend like this is something strange to the public landscape of Trinidad and Tobago politics. Let's not gaslight each other. Over 100 countries were ruled by the British, but guess what? Only 6 countries still use the Privy Council. Okay. I don't see that as necessarily an argument. You'd have to look at which countries left and what did they leave for? What was their replacement? Are they better off for it? Secession, autonomy, self-governance. What do you think? What to you is the difference between all three? Well, positive radiation. I know, you remember, I had this discussion lots of times on this live where I myself asked, because people have been asking for autonomy and they have been obfuscating what exactly they mean. They say autonomy and then they suggest anything from a little more right to wholesale independence. It's a gaslighting game. And I'm not here to play that game. I'm sorry, positive. You probably mightn't like how I say it. But I am not here to play the gaslighting game. You're not going to gaslight me on this one. There are many Tobagonians that vocalize, talk about Tobagonian independence and going it alone and leaving them Trinidadians there. Let's not gaslight each other like it's not a prominent spoken thing. We know this. I know your personal position is different. And I'm not saying all Tobagonians believe that. And I know that there's nuance in it. I know there's nuance in it. I know there are Tobagonians talking about getting more ability for deciding their own destiny and being able to possibly export on their own, import on their own, get loans that they could possibly access on their own. I know there are differing levels of it. But let's not pretend that there aren't some all the way. And if there are some all the way and separating from Trinidad and Tobago, my point is just that how do you expect the wider Caribbean to respond to wanting to any of these countries wanting to link permanently? The time for that also, I think, is gone. I think the time for federating the Caribbean is I think we missed that opportunity. Anyway, if we wanted to do that, the time to do that was just when we were aiming to do it. Back in that time when a lot of countries were getting their independence, that was the time. But who knows, maybe if there was the federation back then, if the federation did stay together, maybe we would have been a further pawn for the colonial powers. Because bear in mind, if we go to relitigate the independence and when we were given independence and all of that, it wasn't all totally about the colonial powers deciding that we have the right of self-governance. No, we were a bit strenuous on them, so they gave us our independence like that, but the intention was still for us to be of benefit to them. And maybe a federated Caribbean would have been more fleeced by the larger superpowers, so maybe us being separate worked out to our benefit. Who knows? Hey, I was going and jumping that oil spill secrets, but I feel we would leave that for tomorrow. I've got to dive out. That's all I have for now, folks. Any further questions or comments on the inside? Up that music. The Tobagonians calling for secession are living in a dream world. Maybe. Maybe. All right, people. That's all I have for now. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you're educated, informed, or entertained. I am Nathan Springer. This has been the Mindful Live. I'll be here again tomorrow for that next Mindful Live session. Until then, people, stay well, stay safe, hold it down. Peace out. I'm gone. Bye.